everyone says do what you love. Don't do what you love. Because if you're doing what you love, you'd be scrolling through YouTube all day. Do what you're good at. And if you're lucky, apply what you love. The thing that I think all entrepreneurs need to recognize is what, from a business standpoint, are they actually good at? The services that they're selling, for sure, that's a no-brainer. You have to be good at that or else you're in big trouble. How are you going to build a clientele into the services you sell? And it's all about the relationship.
Welcome to How to Flourish in Cannabis. I'm your host, Brian Weber. Our topic today, 5 essential values of cannabis entrepreneurs. How to Flourish in Cannabis is an educational focused show of experienced leaders in regulated cannabis. Our guests have a wide range of industry experience in law, insurance, real estate, and today, a veteran cannabis entrepreneur. There's no pitches here. This is designed to be a masterclass in regulated cannabis. How to Flourish in Cannabis is our effort to elevate and educate. Thanks for watching. Today, I'm really happy to have what has actually been a new relationship for us, but we've kind of become fast friends over this. And I've really valued the feedback and his experience in this industry. And I had to have him on for a show. So Will Reed, co-founder and CEO of CannaPlanners up in Vermont. And they've been in the industry for about 10 years. Will, how did you get into this industry?
It's crazy to hear you put a number like that to it. Thanks for that very kind intro, Brian. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on the show. It's an honor to be here. Yeah, so I started CannaPlanners back in 2016. So coming up on 10 years, it's for sure approaching. We're based in Burlington, Vermont. In Burlington, Vermont, there are several vertical-focused digital marketing agencies. One of them is called Dealer.com. It was purchased as I was contemplating CannaPlanners. It was being purchased for the first time for $962 million or something like that. I was working at a company that was digital marketing for the real estate space. At the time, there was one for grocery stores that doesn't exist anymore. There's one in town that focuses on plumbers and HVACs. Pretty boring stuff, but a strong business model. So this business model existed. It's not a new business model. But at the time, there was no one doing it in the cannabis space. And, I think the reasons were obvious. So I had this drive at that sort of stage in my life. I was a really shitty employee, Brian, and I'm sure we'll get into that and kind of some of the personality quirks that sometimes lead to somebody being an entrepreneur. Yeah. So I was watching these companies grow and develop, and I was thinking, this is a skill set I have. I can sell this kind of product. It's just, I got to put in the work and figure out how to do it in the cannabis space. So luckily, Vermont was, kind of a little bit in the forefront of the CBD boom of that era. We were a little bit ahead of the Farm Bill. So I was able to kind of test this theory with CBD companies and trying to figure out e-commerce solutions for them. So that's kind of the TLDR of CannaPlanners. It started at my kitchen table with my then wife, just trying to figure out how to create a life for ourselves.
Yeah. I like that. Follow your passions on that one and dive into the opportunity on that one. So you came recommended from 5 different people about the great work that you guys do, but that's not the topic that we want to talk about today. This is like all industries, it is a very challenging industry, and this industry has some unique challenges to it. And the more we were talking about a topic, the more we really circled around upon the 5 values of a cannabis entrepreneur that might be a little bit extra or different than regular, entrepreneurs in different spaces. And some of them are similar, but I think we're going to give some specific examples of where they make here today. So if you are in this industry and need a pep talk, if you are debating getting into this industry and really want, some sage advice from people who've been here for a decade and have talked to thousands of entrepreneurs, this is your show. So let's get into it today.
Real quick, I don't want to, this isn't a pitch, and I don't really, I think those topics are pretty sleepy, but what I will say in regards to what we do versus my entrepreneurial drive is these topics, SEO, digital marketing, websites, give me a break. They're 40 years old. Who cares? But I will say, when considering the route I wanted to take, beyond having some sales experience, leadership experience in these, selling these types of services, you have to figure out what the need is. It's, someone said to me a long time ago, don't do what you love, because if you're doing what you love, you'd be scrolling through YouTube all day or, skiing all day. Do what you're good at. And if you're lucky, apply what you love. So that's really what I wanted to do, what I'm good at. And the thing that I think all entrepreneurs need to recognize is what, from a business standpoint, are they actually good at? The services that they're selling, for sure, that's a no brainer. You have to be good at that, or else you're in big trouble. But how are you going to build a clientele into the services you sell? And it's all about the relationship. So I will say, despite those things being sleepy topics, and they are, I don't want to talk about SEO. From a bottom line standpoint, there's a huge need for these services. There's a huge need for lots of services in many industries, but there's a huge need for the service. And recognizing, Wayne Gretzky famously said, you go where the puck, you skate to where the puck is going to be, right? Whatever. I'm paraphrasing, but so you have to see the opportunity and know that, it's going to take you a minute to skate there, but that the puck will be there. So it's taken a long time, and we've done it totally organically, completely free of any investor dollars. But, we're signing on 10, 12 SEO clients a month, and we're signing on, almost that many website, so it's important just to recognize not the services that we offer, but like how those services have grown over the last few years as a result of like some of these values that I hope we're going to talk about.
Well, Will, thanks for the background on that. And a lot of the long-term success in this industry generally found in all the partners and all the consultants and all the people that I've talked to in this industry, they have some core values that keep them sustained in what is a very challenging startups in a startup industry for so long. I mean, a decade is a long time, especially working in a startup world. So I know the first point on our agenda topics today was know your why. And why'd you put that on there?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this, and I think like even before the why, it's the how. And I don't even mean like I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to, first I'm going to get up and I'm going to brush my teeth and I'm going to put my tie on. I don't mean that. I mean like the one thing that every business owner, entrepreneur, whatever has to have before the why is the how. And the how is by not giving up. The one common trait amongst all of your guests so far, right? Time will tell. But so far is that none of them have given up. None of them have stopped. They've all seen an opportunity, and probably along the way, people have told them they were crazy, or have told, they probably told themselves a million reasons why they couldn't do something or whatever. That's just being a human. But the fact is, like, in order for me to have created a life for myself, I had to set out on a journey, and I could never, ever stop, and I could never, ever go back. So before we talk about the why, I think it's like important to realize, like, listen, you can have a million dreams. You could think you have the best idea ever, and you probably do. But like, if you're the type of person who's going to give up after the first challenge, you're staying employee.
Yeah, yeah. Is this one of those burn the boats story of like we're over here now and I'm going to burn the boats and we're not going back, so we have to succeed over here or not?
Yeah, for sure.
Do you have a story from your upbringing or maybe even one of the clients? A quick anecdote here that you've seen people have success in this industry with that mentality.
I'll tell you a story from my youth, and this is just kind of like maybe an indication of my personality, for better or for worse. So I was a Boy Scout growing up. I was an Eagle Scout. There's a very famous, I guess, Boy Scout ranch in New Mexico called Philmont. It is ridiculously huge. It is several mountains. And so this is the 90s. This is pre 9/11, everybody. So like the world is a little chiller. Pre-COVID, pre 9/11, it's a different world, but people still take things pretty seriously. So like I was leading my troop, and it was I don't know, 20 kids, all, between the ages of 13 and 16, right? And I was 16, and two adult chaperones. and I got a stress fracture in the middle of this thing, right? And I had to be medevaced out of, from the middle of the New Mexican wilderness, right? And I was really bummed because like we were maybe 3 days from finishing, right? Basically, you start off at base camp, you go out one door, you do this whole loop. It's, a whole week of trekking through the mountains. And then you come back in the back door, the other side of the ranch, right? So I got medevaced out and I was really bummed. And I felt, I'm feeling like I'm letting myself down. I'm letting my team down. We're 3,000 miles from home. Like my parents spent all this money. Like, what the hell, dude? And in the middle of the night, I escaped out the window of the first aid tent. Like I jump out the window, like I wrap up my ankle and I jump out the window. Like I pack a little bag and I escape. Okay. And I go out the back door and I go up the back side of this trail because I know at some point during that time, my troops coming around the other side will meet in the middle. And that's exactly what happened. We met in the middle and I was sitting there waiting. I had a fire going. I was like, hey, what's up, guys? They're like, what the hell are you doing? All that's true. And it was all because I was dedicated to completing this task. I was, whether or not I had a stress fracture in my ankle, whether or not there were now like squadrons of people who were like looking for me because they think, whatever, is true. My troop is, I don't know if this stands 30 years later, but my troop was not allowed to ever go back to Philmont because of this thing. But it was, it was more important for me to finish this task and like actually see my leadership capabilities through. I don't want to say I escape out the windows of in every kind of challenge in my life. Sometimes, sometimes you're screwed, but it's about finding the solution and making sure that you get the shit done. Sometimes you got to jump out a window.
Well, Will, that's a hell of a story. And I'm glad you brought them. I'm glad you brought them out of the wilderness and God be damn authority figures and whatever else. Your team needed you and you needed to be there for them. And I love it. So I'm sure they appreciate that to this day as well. Your second point was rather interesting. And I want to learn how you kind of came up about this one of knowing your weaknesses. Why is that such an essential element for or value for being a cannabis entrepreneur?
From a psychological standpoint, you have to know yourself. And knowing yourself doesn't mean that you let your super ego take over. And sometimes it's not even the super ego. Sometimes it's just like, I don't think I trust anybody to do any of these other things for me, or I don't want to impose on anybody to help me do these things that like I really don't know how to do. So I'll boil it down to the simplest thing, right? When I first started thinking about starting a company, my dad, who's an attorney and has started many companies, gave me a bit of advice. He said, you do two things: accountant, lawyer. And that's all he said to me, right? Accountant, lawyer. Those are not things that you went to school for. You can barely count to 20. You don't know how to start an LLC. You don't know the ins and outs of any of this stuff. So recognize that you don't know these things and just pay for the person who does know how to do it. Now, like that sounds like, oh, well, how am I going to pay for it? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They'll let you pay for it for 3 years if you want to. Like, it doesn't matter. What matters is like, in order to get to the stage where you're doing the thing, right? You're actually executing on some sort of business plan. There's so many steps in between. And maybe you want to take the time to file your own paperwork with the Secretary of State, or, figure out how to, file taxes, or figure out if you're an LLC or a secret, whatever. Like maybe those are challenges you want. But for me, I didn't want to figure those things out because I knew I wouldn't figure those things out. It was just a level of self-awareness that I had, and I think it saved me a lot of time. I didn't make a lot of mistakes that I think a lot of people made because accountant, lawyer.
Yep. And you are neither of those. So let those experts do their expertise and let you focus on building the business. So,
well, I'll tell you what else I'm not. I'm not a web developer. I'm not a web designer. I'm not an SEO specialist. I'm not a loyalty marketer. I'm not any of those things. I'm not a brand developer. Any of the services that we offer, I'm not even allowed into the back end of the websites, by my own team.
Don't touch the code. You're going to mess it up, Will. Get out of here.
So that's the code, right? But I don't want to go in there anyway, right? So even when you're starting your company, like guaranteed, there's things that you want your business to do, like from front of house side, that probably you don't know how to do.
Probably don't know how to do. And that's not your job. It's like The E-Myth was a very pivotal book for myself when launching my first business as well. So there's a lot of those lessons in there. If you're the baker or not, but you are the guest today. I'll let you continue on with these things. One that I hear come up often that we almost wanted to have as number one, especially for this industry, resiliency. I know you have a million stories of this in this industry, but please opine.
Well, it's exactly how we started this conversation, which is the how. And if you are unable to throw in a towel, then you will go through some shit, right? And you will build resiliency in yourself. And here's the thing about resiliency actually is like you will become a better business person, you'll become a better leader, all of these things. But like what actually, and this is my personal experience, I don't know that this is across the board for every business owner that's ever lived, but I'm a different person than I was 8 years ago. Like I'm a different person than I was 3 years ago. I'm a different person than I was 6 months ago. And it's because I'm taking on the challenges of the day, the challenges of the week, the challenges of the month, be it internally, like logistically running the business. How do I hire people better? How do I become more efficient at whatever, right? Yeah. And once you figure out those tasks, and you're probably going to, fail way more time, before you actually figure it out. Um, but with every one of those failures, you become smarter, you become a little bit tougher, and you become a different person. So be prepared, entrepreneurs, to evolve as a human being. It's bittersweet. I'll say that because your relationships change, and the way you the way you engage within your relationships, they all change. Your relationships to your employees, that for sure changes. The way I engage with my team today is way different than how it was last year.
Great quote is, if you're going to go through it, grow through it. So embrace that change. And like, I know there's a lot of marketing events in new markets, and it's the green rush, and people try to pivot cannabis as that. This is a highly regulated, high taxed industry with so many hurdles for anything else that's not highly regulated or taxed to get into. This is a challenging industry to succeed in.
It's okay to have dollar signs in your eyes. Like, I think that that's okay. But I would counter that with a timing expectation. There is for sure money to be made in this industry, but it is 100% a long game.
You got to have resiliency for that one. Thank you for the story on that one. One important fact that is universal in all businesses, and it kind of touches on what we just talked about, though, but the lifeblood of all businesses is money. And you have to have money. And there's a balance in that money. And sometimes taking some money can be a bad idea and throw you off your game. And sometimes you need to lead into those things in order to be able to survive. So you had some great points on this when we were discussing this. And I love conversations that help elevate your level of thinking on things and not trying to convince one way or another. It is, you're discussing the topic to have better understanding on those things. So let's get into that. How did your evolution of clients and money and keeping the business alive, has that evolved in this industry?
And this is maybe more common in the creative sector. So beyond the digital side, we're also a creative agency. We make lots of cool things. We've developed hundreds of brands in this space. We've designed thousands of products in this space. Like, we're really busy on the creative side. And I think, like, so, 99% of the employees here are, creative brained people. And when we first started, I think we did what a lot of creatives do, which is you undersell yourself, you diminish your immediate value so that you can generate a portfolio. You just really undervalue yourself. You sell yourself inexpensively, right? So That's okay to do because in the beginning you do want to build a portfolio. You can also fake it. Like you can create brands, you can just make up brands, which is something we did too. We started our first website was full of brands that we made up, including CannaPlanners, right? So like we just kind of faked it. And a lot of agencies do that. And for sure we did. The thing that has to happen though is, once you sell that first project, you undersell, and let's be real, it's probably the first 100 projects, right? Like you need to understand that you're generating value for a customer, and you need to yank your prices right through the roof. So I would say in the entire history of this company, we've increased prices 50 times, at least, like probably more than that, right? And it's because of a lot of things. We're becoming a more successful company. People want to work with us. Like we don't have to beg for work anymore. So the other side of that is you're still a small business, and cash flow is the most important thing. There's no reality where I open my door and I say, "Hey, team, like we can't make payroll this week." They'd revolt. You know what I mean? So, and sometimes, like, just to give you some examples, like in the history of this company, the amount of times I opted to not take a paycheck is many, many, many times, and some of my co-founders too. Like sometimes you just gotta eat the shit, right? And that's part of being a leader. In a growing company, is like you're usually you're the first to be there, the last to leave, and probably not the highest paid employee.
Nope, definitely. Hopefully not, actually. And while you're getting things ramped up, but eventually, someday, hopefully,
Yeah. Oh,
because
someday.
you're delivering massive value. And like, listen, you got sweat equity in this for days. So, um, I'm loving this. And like an audience, if you're loving it too, one, if you have any questions on cannabis entrepreneurship, whatever else, Will loves talking about this stuff. Leave some comments. If you get any value, if you watch this far in, give a like, give a subscribe. Super appreciate that. It helps out a lot more than you know. You see every YouTube creator offering and asking for this stuff because it makes a big difference. That's all we ask from you for all the production value here. So thank you for that. We have one last point.
Before you go into your last point, in regards to your like and subscribe, let me just add some context to like and subscribe.
Oh, I love this. Let's get into this. Let's get some meta.
Well, okay, let's get meta with like and subscribe. So, in the years leading up to me deciding to file for an LLC, the amount of podcasts, blog posts, conversations, phone calls, like whatever I did in order to not just validate, I really wanted someone to kick me in the butt off the cliff. That's what instead of like me jumping. So podcasts like how I built this, which my podcast was based off that. And the reason I started my podcast was because of the huge, huge impact personally that those conversations made on me. And what it did was contextualize that business leaders are just people, and most of them are idiots, right? Most of us are just dumb, stubborn dummies who just don't feel like they have any other choice. So do like and subscribe, because these conversations, whether or not you like this conversation, whatever, but these conversations are important because I think they validate a lot of the way entrepreneurs think about themselves before becoming an entrepreneur. So like and subscribe.
Thank you for that little prep talk. What is the name of your podcast? Remind the audience of that one.
My podcast is called Common Sense Mia. It is
You got
on,
a funny name. I forgot the name of it though.
you can
Common
find
Sense
it on
Mia.
YouTube. I've slowed down a little bit on it because my focus has shifted a little bit. And that's another thing about being a business leader is like my job description evolves. Last year it was podcaster. This year podcaster isn't in my job description anymore. But I do value all those conversations that I was able to have with business leaders.
Yep, those were influential to me as well. And precursor to this show was a show called Lit Up Founders that went really deep with entrepreneurs. So I love the ring of that, and that's why we're doing this show, to help give some encouragement to people that are out there looking into this industry. I love, so when we were doing the show prep on this one, we started with this last point. And this was the seed for the whole show today. And it's about being and having great integrity and not, as we all put it, effing over your team. So let's talk about that, because integrity in this industry, which is a very small industry, is worth everything. So how did you learn that one?
I have good parents. I was a Boy Scout. I was a mischievous but relatively good kid with a good upbringing. So I think integrity, at least the idea of treating people the way that I like to be treated, is ingrained in my DNA. I do the best I can. So, one thing that I saw throughout my professional life, and this is obviously a hyperbolous generalized statement, but I saw it frequently enough that it had an impact on me, which was I would see decisions being made either from a top down or laterally that were made absent of any consideration of the team or the client or anything like that. It was just a lot of times decisions would be self-serving. And quite frankly, sometimes I was on the receiving end of that and it didn't make me feel great, you know? So an example would be, a salesperson completely underselling a project and then leaving it up to a developer team to basically figure it out, right? You don't do that. And so when I started this company, we had this rule. When we started this company, it was just me and my co-founder, Corey, who's my developer. I will use the PG version of the rule. The rule is don't F over your team. In the beginning, it was a reminder to me to not make Corey's life more miserable than it needed to be, right? And as my company grew, as we started, acquiring clients and partnerships and all this thing, this rule took on a whole new meaning, and it was basically don't put yourself in situations or don't create situations that could basically turn bad and don't make somebody else clean up your mess. And that can go internal to external, front of house to back of house, clients to team back to clients. Like it's a rule that we now enforce with our clients too. These are highly stressed out people. You know, a lot of times, us included, we're doing lots of work. We're trying to open up stores, sometimes multiple stores in multiple states. It's super challenging. There's a lot of stress. We're selling weed, right? So one thing that we like to do is we just want to deliver a very specific kind of experience. We're a creative team. We're executing on really fun, creative solutions. We're selling weed. So we want to make it a pleasant experience. You know, even though we're developing websites and it's not that sexy, we want an experience around it. We want there to be a customer service side to it, because what we don't want to happen from any way, be it sales in, client in, company out, we don't want anybody to get screwed over. Right. And so we're just looking out for the best interest of really everybody. And it's impossible to have everybody's best interest at play. But really what you're trying to do is just execute solutions.
And be honest about that, and don't F over your team. I love that story, and it is a very good value. And also, like, part of that is understanding, like, the team can mean different things. It's your internal team, it's your team with your relationship with your client, it's relationship to the industry. The team can be applicable to everywhere in this industry. And I have definitely found in my 3 years in this industry, when you screw somebody over, people will know about it.
100%, especially in this industry.
Especially in this industry.
It's so small.
So small. Will, thank you for being on today. Like, the things we went over today was know your why, know your how you're going to get there, know your weaknesses and understand yourself. Resiliency. I don't think we could underline that one any bigger for this industry. Focus on the metrics of running an actual business in a very highly compliant, highly taxed, very complicated industry with a billion barriers in your face. And at the end of the day, with all those challenges, don't F over your team. But thank you for sharing some knowledge and wisdom today. I love the story of the entrepreneurship, as you are building your business and all the services, and you're building so many other businesses in cannabis as well. It really helps tying all that stuff together. So some amazing things to be mindful of. If guests wanted to connect with you in CannaPlanners, what is the best way for them to be able to reach out?
Sure. We're at CannaPlanners on all the socials, except for Facebook, which we're not really on, but that's 420 Web. You can find us at cannaplanners.com. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so you can always find me there, and I would be happy to talk to you.
Amazing. Amazing. Will, Reed, CannaPlanners, thanks for the sage advice. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Brian. I appreciate you.